Welcome back to another Project Rebirth review. Today we're going to take a look at Mafex figure number 017. It's the Batman figure from Batman vs. Superman. I'm especially pleased to do this review because it's the first and only figure from Mafex that I own. And I do have one other figure from Beast Kingdom, so essentially I'd say that I have these two premium figures. Everything else has pretty much been pretty basic from Mattel, so I'm excited to take a look at this. Here's a look at the front of the box, where you can see numerous alternative hands, as well as looks like a grenade gun, a batarang, and I think it's grapple gun. Here's the left side of the box, the right side, and here's a look at the back of the box. All right, let's get this Mafex Batman out of the box. All right, so here's the figure out of the box, and this is a really beautiful looking figure. And one of the first things that caught my attention is, I'm used to kind of the rubberized cape, and I'm not sure what to call this fabric, because it's not smooth like a cloth, but I don't know. I'm not sure how to describe it. And then it has a wire that goes through the cape, so you can bend it in certain ways. That's the plus side. But you do get this weird kind of ugly seam showing that I think you have to work in and tuck in, and mine came out of the box being very, very visible. But certainly you can get some neat poses with the cape out of that. And that's a really nice feature. And as we saw in the packaging, the figure comes with many different hands. These are just a few. Like, I don't know if this looks like he's giving the peace sign or something. So it's a little bit strange because, some are obvious and others aren't. And I kind of feel like I need to watch someone else's video to figure out what these hands are meant for. There's the batarang, which is really quite beautiful. They did an excellent job on that accessory. And here's the grapple gun. Again, very nice in detailing. And here's this little thing. I don't know if this is supposed to be a grenade or some kind of tech device. But definitely a lot of hands and accessories to get lost, so be careful. All right, let's take a look at articulation. And like I stated, this is my first Mafex figure. So if I make any mistakes in reviewing the articulation, just let me know in the comments. But one of the first things I noticed is a beautiful range of motion in the head. This figure can really look down far and look up very far. I mean, that's a great range of motion. And you'd be able to get some really good poses. Of course, you can go around 360. I did notice that as far as shoulder extension, this is very limited. In fact, when I tried to push it more, I popped the arm out completely. So at least that came back in. There is movement at the upper bicep. Of course, the arms can bend, and I think perhaps a double jointed elbow, but a nice bend degree there. And then the figure can rotate at the wrist. The movement's not at the waist. In this figure, it's at the upper torso, like this. And a really significant waist crunch downward. And the figure can really extend backwards quite far. So very, very wide range of motion there. Legs can extend. As they extend upward, the leg has a tendency to rotate outward, as you can see. And a really nice double jointed knee. And lots of movement. Looks like the toe joint flexes up and down, and a lot of pivot and flex at the ankle of the foot. So that's much more articulation than you get from a typical multiverse figure. I do want to note that some of the figures, like the hole here for the hand to go on, seems to be too small. And I hit this with a hairdryer, and I still could not get it on the peg right. And this one that does fit just seems to be a little bit larger. So that's a bit frustrating. Let's take a 360 look at this Batman figure from Mafex. So now we're going to compare the Mafex Batman from Batman vs. Superman along with some other figures. And in this case, on the left-hand side, he is with the multiverse Batman vs. Superman figure, the unmasked version. As you can see, the Mafex figure is overall smaller in stature and slightly smaller in height. And here he is next to the DC Multiverse Justice League version of Batman. And with another DC Multiverse figure, this is the alternative version of Batman from Justice League, the one that comes with the mother boxes. Alright, so here's my final thoughts with regard to the Mafex Batman from Batman vs. Superman. Ironically, this is actually the third version of my final thoughts that I've recorded regarding this figure. The first time, I gave an enthusiastic hell yes, you should buy it. Then after I had recorded that, I was just doing some more post-video shots of still pictures, posing the figure, being very gentle with the wrist joints, and one of them snapped and broke on me, and that was very frustrating. So then I re-recorded a version where it was an absolute hell no, don't buy this figure. With a little work, I was able to put that snap the wrist joint back together, and it is working, but in my mind a very still significant negative. So I just wanted to give you all those thoughts. So I can't really say hell yes, you should buy it, but I'm not going to say absolutely hell no, you shouldn't buy it either. I'm just going to run through the pros and cons. For the pros, the one thing I really like about this figure is the way it looks, and I especially like the posable cape. I've never had a figure like that before, and that's a really nice feature. Another mark in the pro column would be the articulation. I really did like how this figure can look so far upward and also look downward, and also the chest and other forms of articulation that's really superior to most other action figures. So that was really nice. One downside to all that articulation would be that some of the joints feel very loose, and especially having that toe joint where it can bend upward. More often than not, when I'm just trying to put the figure in a simple fighting pose, the legs would move in some direction not intended due to the articulation, and make the figure want to fall down. So that's a negative. And surprisingly, with the shoulder articulation, that this is about as good as it gets, and you can't extend that shoulder up to at least 90 degrees. So that limitation is actually surprising. Now, as far as cons, one con would be that it's smaller in scale than the typical Mattel figures. So in my mind, if you have all Mafex, then it's not an issue. But if you have a number of figures and you want to have them stay side by side, then that would be a problem. Another con, a big con, that I've already talked about was the fact that wrist joint broke on me. And I can't tell you how frustrating that is, and it's definitely a first in project video history that while simply doing a review and basic photo shoot, that a figure breaks on me like that. Now, it's fortunate that I was able to put those pieces back together, but man, what's the point? And I don't remember counting, but 5, 6 hands. What's the point of them if you're afraid to ever take them off the pegs and switch the hands joints out, because those pegs are so fragile? And another thing too is that the hands sit very awkwardly and unnatural way on the pegs, so that a lot of times the figure looks very fake unless you get those super flush with the wrist. So that's a negative. And I guess that's as far as negatives go, that's about it. So in my mind, it comes down to this. Mattel versus Mafex. What's your preference? The figure on the right is going to be at least double, perhaps triple the price of that Mattel figure. And if you look in here, obviously, the body, the texture on this looks extremely realistic, as opposed to cheaper looking plastic. Superior face sculpt, but a not bad face sculpt, but definitely no doubt about it, your face sculpts on Mafex are going to be better. Like I said, you get some extra accessories and some other hands, but it depends on how often you intend to use them. And at least on the Mattel figures, the hand and the wrist look like it's one cohesive part of the body, as opposed to something that sometimes looks very alien and separate meaning the hand from the wrist when it's separated by a skinny little peg. So I don't know. It really comes down to, is it worth it to you to spend the extra money to get the Mafex? And in this case, I was glad I did. And like I said, I by no means paid full price, but if you can get one for a decent price, I think it's definitely worth it, especially with the cape. You can get some really cool poses. Overall, it's really, really nice, but man, oh man, oh man, it is so delicate. So certainly you can never give it to a child, and even for an adult, you really got to put it in a pose and leave it alone. And, if that's okay for you, then by all means buy it. Sorry, that was a little bit rambling and more of a final thought than I'd normally give, but I had to give a lot of thought to this because, like I said, it was my third version, and I've struggled with this one. But anyway, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next Project Rebirth review.